Backoo Live, June 15th, 2022. It's good to be back with you again. This is our fifth Backoo Live in the last 18 days. So I've been kind of pressed here with preparation time. So tonight we're going to do some memories from the time growing up there. And my wife has kept reminding me that I need to tell the folks who I am. I never mention that because there's not everybody that watches this knows me. So tonight we're going to open with a bit about myself. I'm Pastor Noel Letexier, born on a farm by Leroy in 1942, and then in 1948 we moved to the outskirts of Backoo and went to country school there for 8 years, and then into Cavalier High School, and then I went on to the University of North Dakota and received a bachelor's degree from UND in 1966. Now, along the way, growing up at Leroy, Backoo, and we did a lot of back and forth because we had so much family and around Leroy, aunts and uncles, and we had several aunts and uncles that farmed within just a few miles of Leroy and Backoo. So we had a lot of cousins, a lot of good times with the cousins from the Martineaus and the Letexiers and the Wervins and Carrions, and it was great. We had some up in Manitoba, first cousins at Morris and Albany. It was terrific. In fact, the number of first cousins I have, you might find hard to believe. And I'm talking first cousins, not first cousins once removed or anything else, just aunts and uncles and their kids. I have 154 first cousins. And so we got cousins all over the country, in Canada and the United States. So there was a lot of relatives around, and it was great growing up, just growing up around the farms and the things that went on. It was good. We were blessed. We were really blessed. But getting back to some of these thoughts about growing up like that, I remember when I was born there on the farm on Christmas morning. I was born on Christmas morning. My birthday was December 25th, and the same day the Clifford twins that we talked about last week, they were born on Christmas Day too, in 1904. Well, I came along 1942 on Christmas Day. And, you know, and it wasn't that many miles apart. We weren't born that many miles apart. But anyway, I was born across the road from Grandpa's. There was a field road, a dirt field road between us. So Grandpa Frank's house was only a couple of 100 feet away from us, and that would have been where my Uncle Jimmy was born. All of those kids' daddies, younger siblings, were born there across the road. So we had a lot of interaction with them. And when I was born, I was a colicky baby, they tell me. And I cried a lot, and only thing that quieted me down was if somebody would carry me, walk around with me. So Jimmy, he was 8 years old, and he got the duty. He never let me forget it. As long as he lived, he kept reminding me of I owed him all that walking you did, carrying me around the house, keep me quiet. But Jimmy was a wonderful guy. Jimmy and I did some traveling together. We went out to western Montana to his son's a couple times, and I rode out with him once, and got off in Butte and went over to Boise and Pocatello to meet up with my son out there, Bill. but we had some good times. Jimmy was a sharp cookie. But getting back to when we were across the road from each other, uh, Jimmy didn't like pancakes. He just didn't care for them. So whenever Grandma had pancakes, he'd truck on over to our place and have supper with us. Get away from the pancakes. Well, one night disaster struck. He gets over to our place, sits at the table, and what do we have? Pancakes. His plan just went out the window. And and speaking of that kind of thing, uh, later on, Grandpa Frank moved a mile west of where we were living. He moved a mile west, and he was about 3/4 of a mile from Jack Cup's farm. And Jack and his wife died young, just close together. I mean, it was really a tragic thing. And they had four kids at home that were living there, and they kind of adopted Grandpa Frank and Grandma as their surrogate grandparents or parents, and so they kind of grew up with my uncles, and they were great guys, and Midgie Cup, and Jim and Harold and Georgie. But one morning, Grandma got up and went into the kitchen, and here was Harold Cup sitting at the table with his fork in his hand. He was there for breakfast. We never let Harold forget that either. He was a good friend of the family. Yeah, I think he sold all of us insurance at one time or another, Farmers Union. But yeah. So, but Jimmy and I suppose this was about early '50s. Jimmy bought a Studebaker. It was blaze orange, absolutely blaze orange, totally. And I think it was a Commander, and it looked like you couldn't tell if it was coming or going. And if you've ever seen pictures of those Studebakers, you can't. I mean, there was like a torpedo coming out the back. It was like a torpedo up in the front, so you couldn't tell if the thing was coming or going. But this thing was blaze orange. It stood out like a sore thumb. Anyway, I'm a little kid, and I'm gonna ride with Jimmy and Grandpa Frank to Walhalla. So we're going, I guess it's number 9, past the cemetery there, heading to Walhalla, and there's two kind of ravines that you go through on the way to Walhalla. And Jimmy was showing off how fast his car was. And I was in the back seat, and Jimmy was really clipping along, and we hit that drop. And it was just like we kept going and then dropped. And Grandpa Frank, he was talking French, and he was talking fast French. And I don't think he was saying how much he loved his son either. But I'll never forget that. Oh, Grandpa Frank was, to say he was upset was putting it mildly. Whenever he was saying something he didn't want us to hear, he'd talk French. But that was a trip with Jimmy that was kind of reminded me of the Stoneboat trips we had that I talked about a few months ago with Jimmy and Duke the horse. Old Jimmy. Jimmy died of pancreatic cancer in 2011. And Louise, my Aunt Louise, Jimmy's sister, they were 2 years apart. She told me about, they had some old bike, ugliest bike she'd ever saw, she said. And they had in those days, you made your own entertainment. I mean, there was no money to go and buy toys and games and anything else. You made your own entertainment. Well, what they had done, they had this old bike, so somebody would ride the bike, and they had an inner tube aired up, and they'd throw it, try to catch the guy riding on the bike. Well, she caught the bike, and Jimmy went head over heels. He was on the bike, he went head over heels with his bike. And I asked, well, what did you do? She said, I ran. 2 words, I ran. She didn't want Jimmy to catch her. But yeah, that was growing up, because there was like 8 kids over there too, in a relatively short time. My dad's mother, he was from the first, Grandpa Frank's first family. There was 4 kids, and just a little history on our family. Daddy was one of 12 kids. He was one of the oldest. There was 4 from his first wife, who died when Daddy was 3 and a half. She died of pneumonia in May of 1928 when he was 3. And later on in the 30s, then Grandpa Frank remarried and had 8 more kids. So there was 12. So they were spread out over a lot of years. And Daddy's kids and myself, and we got to be as old as some of our aunts and uncles. But yeah. So Grandma Lena, she was Grandpa's second wife, Grandma Lena. We loved her dearly. She was like our grandma. She was our grandma. And she was a saint. We loved her so much. And she took good care of Daddy, from when he was just little. She looked after him after his mother died, and when she married Grandpa Frank. But that's and my mother, she was a Martineau from Leroy, and we'll talk about Martineaus here on another occasion. They were the true pioneers up there in Pembina County, from in the middle, even before the middle of the 1800s. My great-great-grandfather was there, my maternal great-great-grandfather. So they had deep roots in Pembina County, in that Leroy, Nietzsche area. So when we talk about Backoo and Leroy, even Walhalla, Nietzsche, Pembina, our family has been around there for a very long time. In fact, when I was a student at UND and my emphasis was on history, loved history, and my emphasis was on history, and I did my history theme paper on Pembina, founded in 1797, and that's a long time ago. George Washington had just left the office of the presidency in 96, and Pembina was founded the next year, 1797. So Pembina is one of the oldest settlements in this region for sure. By far, it's the oldest. An old Fort Pembina, and there's a lot of history up there. Pembina County used to be a powerhouse in the Bismarck and in St. Paul too, politically, because that's where the people were. And as hard as it would be to believe today, St. Joseph's Church in Leroy moved there in 1873 because that's where all the people were. That's where all the people were. That church was founded in 1848 by Father Belcourt, and in 1873 they moved it to Leroy. St. Joseph's Catholic Church moved it to Leroy because all the people were there. That's where all the people were living, and it's still there, although it closed. I suppose in the early 2004, 2006, in 2008, they had the 160th anniversary of that congregation, that parish. 2008, 160 years. So now it'd be 170 some. Beautiful church. Big hall that goes with it. That's where we have our reunions in Leroy Hall. Our family has reunions usually every 5 years until the pandemic, and that kind of threw it for a loop. But we'll get this all behind us, and we'll get started up with that again. So deep roots in that part of the state of Backoo, and in 1983 we had a centennial celebration in Backoo. It'd be the largest crowd that Backoo has ever seen. In 1983, had a parade. It was quite an event. A lot of people from with roots there came back. It was just a wonderful time. And I can't find my notes for that celebration, but we're going to get back to that when I can get a hold of my notes about it, because there was quite a mayoral race there. See who would be the mayor of Backoo. And it was a terrific race. Strong competition. And they announced the winner on the day the celebration started. And I'm not going to disclose who the winner was, but he and his opponent are both still living. And that's that'll be 40 years ago next year. 40 years ago that we had the centennial for Backoo. So I'm hoping to get both of those guys on Backoo Live. Since they're both alive yet, we'll get them back. I want to get them back on here and tell me about the campaign. It was the talk of the country, that battle they had for who was going to be the mayor of Backoo. And the guy that won, he's still the mayor. 40 years later, he's still the mayor. Oh, yeah, it's great. So we'll see what insights he might have for us if we can get him on Backoo Live, if he's not too shy. We'll put some pressure on him. But that'll be a lot of fun. Talk about that. And then let's see. Oh, and I also I've been looking for some in September of 1959. We had some of the biggest Nashville stars of the day in Leroy. They were in Leroy, North Dakota. There was a half a dozen of them at least, of the biggest stars from Nashville. And Charlotte Beauchamp, she was the one that was handling the booking of entertainment into the hall there in Leroy. And somehow she got wind of that they had an open date between Minneapolis and Winnipeg. And she got a hold of their organization or whoever, and they agreed to come to Leroy on their open date from Minneapolis. On the way to Winnipeg, they came to Leroy. And I think it was like September 25th. I mean, it had been the biggest event in my life up to that point. And the hall, a whole lot of people, but it was standing room only. The fire marshal would have had a fit. He never walked into that. He couldn't get in. In fact, he couldn't have got in. It was that tight. But yeah, it was incredible. And my brother Billy, he had a hot rod, and he was giving these guys rides from the hall up to the bar and back. Made his day too, or his night. Yeah. But it was wonderful entertainment. Some of the biggest hits just out. And these guys, these entertainers, they just had a ball. They couldn't believe the fun they were having in little old Leroy, North Dakota. And none of us that were there will ever forget it. It was terrific, terrific. You won't see that nowadays. Nowadays they want 100, 150,000 to show up. Well, they didn't get that in Leroy, I can tell you. Yeah, it was good. It was good. That's something that couldn't happen with the way things are today, with the prices that these entertainers want. Yeah, but hey, let me just check my little scribbling here. I ran out of time. I've got too many irons in the fire here with work, and it's gets to be a little hairy sometimes to get it all done. But another thing I was thinking about when I was wondering about Backoo Live tonight is the way that the mothers had to work when we were kids. And I was thinking about clothes and washing clothes, because we had an old wringer washer, and I was the oldest of the kids, so I got to help when we still had that old wringer washer. And we, first of all, we had to haul the water, because the water that we had between the house and the barn, just wasn't drinkable. We didn't even let the cattle have it. We had to drive them to the corner of the pasture to drink that water. So we had to haul the water, for one thing, to wash the clothes in this old wringer washer. And of course, being just a kid, small, the constant refrain was, don't get your hand into the wringer, because it's two rollers and the clothes squeezed between them, so don't get your fingers in there and it'll suck your arm right in. And that was a constant reminder, be careful. But then we didn't have a dryer either. The dryer was outside on the clothesline. Every yard had clotheslines. Every yard in Backoo had clotheslines. Any community, there's the clotheslines, and you went and hung your clothes out on the clothesline with the clothespins. So you just hope that Jack the Crow wasn't around when you were doing it. You remember him, Jack the Crow? Yeah, he would let the clothespins loose. Oh yeah, but they'll hang those clothes out summer and winter. Hung a lot of clothes out, and in wintertime that was quite a sight. Wherever you went, there's these long johns hanging on a line, stiff as a board. And then you'd have a clothes rack inside that you would drape clothes on and dry them in the house if it was too cold to get out. Of course, and then on outside, you'd have the snowdrifts underneath the clotheslines. So you had to work your way through that to put the clothes out and bring them back in. So everything was labor intensive. And thinking of mother and diapers, you know, that you didn't have these throwaway diapers. You had cloth diapers. All the flour sacks, they went into diapers, turned into diapers after you were done with them. And to clean all those and then wash them separately in a separate batch, and get those hung out. And everything was work. And these mothers just, it was 24 hours a day of work. And both my dad's mother and my mother's mother died young. Both had pneumonia. One, and Mom's, she was 8 when her mother died, pneumonia. And a few months later, my dad's mother died of pneumonia as well. So they both lost their mothers at a young age. So and they both knew that heartache and the hard work that they had to do. So they'd grown up with it. So it didn't make it any easier, but they probably understood why the hard work was needed. So we shouldn't complain today. You got your washer and dryer and all of those conveniences, like it was then. There was it was really tough on the ladies in that age. It was tough on babies too. We're doing some reading on the history up there, and boy, there was a lot of babies died. A lot of babies. So anyway, those are some memories from back then, and I hope to have the centennial story here soon, and we're getting very close now to getting a hold of Merlin again and get set up to visit with him about the Dahlstead family band and his music and his days as a ham operator. My thoughts get ahead of me. I can't get it all in. So God bless you. This is Backoo Live, signing off. Now if I can figure out how to shut it off.
Hit finish.
Hit finish. Okay, hit finish. Well, let me try this.